Welcome back, and in this video I'm going to show you how iSCSI can be configured. The focus of the lab is to actually set up a iSCSI target on server 1 and then on server 2 and 3 to use the built-in initiator to actually connect to the storage. So as you notice, we're actually logged on to server 1. So what we're going to do is, and you want to be logged on as, since this is the domain controller from the previous videos, what we want to do is log in as a domain admin, and we're going to start the server manager. So I'm going to let the server manager just catch up here, and as you notice from the past labs, we have a bunch of services or roles configured on this. We're going to go right here to File and Storage, and then we're going to select iSCSI. Now, this feature, or rather role, has not been configured on this server, so the easiest way to do it is just click on this link. The other way that you could do it is go here to Add Roles Features, but as you see, if I click on this link, it's going to start the Add Roles and Feature wizard. We're going to select server 1 because that's what we're setting it up on first for the target. And then I'm going to scroll down here just to show you that it automatically selected the iSCSI target server for us. So click next on that, just next, and I don't have to check restart. It's not going to want to restart the server. So we'll click install. And as soon as it's done, and it says, installation succeeded, I'm going to close this dialog box. But right now it's actually installing the iSCSI target role. So if you were to talk about the iSCSI target versus the iSCSI initiator, the client-server relationship there would be the target is always the server, and the initiator is always the client. So I'm going to click close, and you're going to notice now that's gone, and it says, hey, to create an iSCSI virtual disk, start the iSCSI virtual disk wizard. That's what we're going to do. Click on that. And for this demo, I'm just going to choose the C drive. I'm going to choose the defaults, but if I were actually setting this up in a non-lab environment, then we'd want to have the iSCSI storage, the iSCSI virtual disk, on actually a storage pool or something resilient with RAID. So click next. I'm going to name this Hyper-V Quorum disk. I'm just going to keep spaces out of there. And let's see, did I spell quorum right? No, I didn't. Whoops, that's a 0. Okay, so this is the quorum disk. I'm going to make this 1 gig, and the difference between the three is fixed size means that it's going to allocate all of the space on the disk. Dynamically expanding means it's going to allow the disk to go up to 1 gigabyte, but it's going to start out probably like 64K. And then differencing disk means that you have a parent that you're going to attach the disk to, and instead of writing the changes to the parent, it's going to write it to the child disk. And these are all pretty common when you're creating a virtual hard disk for a VM. What I'll tell you is that fixed size and clearing the virtual disk on allocation gives you the best performance. Dynamically expanding disks can actually be problematic because, if you think about it, a dynamically expanding disk is going to get bigger over time, so that space on the disk was not allocated up front. And if you have fragmentation, obviously you're going to have a performance issue. Now, differencing disks should really never be used. They can actually lead to data corruption because you're actually writing changes to a separate VHD and chaining it to a parent. So generally what differencing disks are used for is like VDI applications, like virtual desktop infrastructure applications, where you don't really care if the data gets corrupted, you'll just compose brand new machines. So we're just going to select the defaults here. Now, I do not have any iSCSI targets. The idea here is we create the virtual disk and we tie it to a target, and the iSCSI service actually serves it out. I don't have any targets, so we're going to have to create one. Now we're going to call this Hyper-V storage target. And again, this is a lab setting, so if this was production, I'd want to have a much more finite naming scheme. Now, for lab environment, what I'm going to do, I don't have any iSNS installed. I'm not going to try and derive the IQN. I'm just going to do it by IP address. So we can even lock it down further to, to MAC address or DNS name, which I couldn't quite get working properly. But I'm going to say these are the initiators that are allowed in. So we know that server 2 is 192.168.1.2. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And then I'm going to add another one, which is for server 3, and 192.168.1.3. Okay, so I have both server 2 and server 3 allowed to actually connect to the target. And the authentication, if I wanted to, I could actually set up challenge handshake authentication protocol, which is further security. Now, for a lab environment, I'm not going to go through and actually enable CHAP. But again, if this was a production environment, we'd be setting up CHAP. It's standard practice. So I'm going to click Next on that, and I'm going to confirm these changes. What it's going to do is it's going to build the quorum disk, 1 gig. It's going to build the target. It's going to attach the disk to the target and start serving it out. So there we go. And it just configured everything. So now I'm just going to, there's a couple ways to do this. We can just right click on here and say new virtual disk, or we can go to tasks and say new virtual disk. I'm going to go here and say new iSCSI virtual disk. And I'm going to select again the C drive. Now you're going to notice it actually stores all of the virtual disks in a folder called iSCSI virtual disks. So we'll look at this after we're done here. But I'm going to put in Hyper-V S2 and 3 storage, and I'm going to give this 2 gig. Again, it's a lab environment, so I'm making these drives rather small. And now, since we have an existing target, that one that we built when we created the other virtual disk, we're just going to attach it to this target. So I click Next, Create, and it's building the disk and connecting it to the target. So, and it just got finished establishing the disk. So I'll go to the C drive now, and we'll see that both VHDs are in there. There they are, both VHDXs rather. And I'm going to close this down now. Now we have the target set up. So now let's go over to server 2. I'm going to go ahead and log into server 2 as administrator and password. So we're going to click on the Start menu. We're going to go to Admin Tools, and I'm going to select the iSCSI Initiator. Now, when I double-click this, the iSCSI Initiator, by default, is a service, and it's not started automatically. So when I double click this, it's going to say, hey, do you want to start it? Do you want to set it to automatic? So just show you that real quick here. There's the initiator. Let me get rid of that action pane. Okay, we could set it, see it's set to manual. And when I say yes on this, okay, I'm just going to refresh this screen here. We can now see it's running and it's set to automatic. So that is the relevance of that dialog box. Now, it brought this up here where we're going to actually put in the iSCSI target, which is 192.168.1.1. Remember, it's server 1. I want to go back to that other menu there for a second. Just show you that there's no tricks up my sleeve. I'm going to go to disk management. And we're going to see that we only have 2 items in here. One's disk 0, the other's a CD-ROM, and I'm just going to put that in the background there, and I'm going to say quick connect. Now right away you'll notice that disk 1 and disk 2 have come up, and it had found that the target was allowed to share out to this host. So we'll click done. This will automatically reconnect. And I'm going to pop over to server 3, and we're going to do the same thing on server 3. So we'll log in. Administrative tools, iSCSI Initiator. Sure, let's start the service. And 192.168.1.1. Now when I do the quick connect, it's going to be persistent, meaning that through reboots it'll reconnect. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I want computer management and disk management. This way we can see the magic happen. Quick connect. Bam, there's our disk 1 and disk 2. So this little exercise here, this lab, shows you how to actually share out storage off server 1 and make server 1 a target, and shows you how to connect server 2 and server 3. In a future video, I'm going to show you the high availability piece of actually making Windows failover clustering work for Hyper-V. So this configuration will actually be required. We'll have a quorum disk, and we'll actually have storage for the actual Hyper-Vs. So thanks for watching, and I hope you had learned something.